The inherited burden. The crystalline spires of Helios Station glittered against the backdrop of swirling nebula gases, its elegant alien architecture a stark contrast to the utilitarian human vessel approaching its docking bay. Inside the small ship's cockpit, Rena Stark gripped the controls tighter than necessary, her calloused hands betraying years of mechanical work rather than the refined bearing expected of a station administrator. The docking computer chimed, and a voice speaking perfect universal standard came through with just a hint of condescension. Unregistered vessel, please state your business with Helios Station. Rena took a deep breath. This is Rena Stark, executing arrival protocols as per the inheritance clause of Administrator Venthor's will. Authorization code Theta-973. A long pause followed. Rena could almost imagine the confusion and disbelief on the other end. Finally, the voice returned, noticeably less composed. Please, proceed to Docking Bay 4. A delegation will meet you there. As her ship glided into the massive docking bay, Rena caught her reflection in the viewport, dark skin marked with engine grease, curly black hair hastily pulled back, an expression set in determination. She didn't look like someone who should own one of the most prestigious research stations in the Orion Arm. That was precisely the problem. The delegation waiting for her consisted of 3 Ardulians, their tall, crystalline forms radiating disapproval. At their head stood Station Operations Director Kvala, whose faceted features shifted through various shades of blue, a sign of barely contained agitation. Ms. Stark, Kvala's voice chimed like struck crystal, this is unexpected. We were under the impression that Administrator Venthor's successor would be someone more like you. Rena stepped onto the dock, her heavy boots clunking against the pristine floor. Sorry to disappoint, but Venthor knew exactly what he was doing. Kvala's surface rippled with patterns of indigo, embarrassment, perhaps, or anger. You must understand our concern. Helios Station is the premier research facility for quantum propulsion technology in 3 sectors. Its administration requires extensive knowledge of of the legacy engine that powers this station. Rena interrupted, pulling up a holographic display from her wrist computer. The one I helped Venthor design. The one whose maintenance protocols I wrote. The other Ardulians exchanged glances, their crystalline forms catching and refracting light in complex patterns. Kvala stepped forward, voice dropping to a lower resonance. You were his assistant. A mechanic. This station requires This station requires someone who understands its heart, Rena said firmly. Venthor taught me everything about the legacy engine. He trusted me to carry on his work. Now, are you going to show me to my office, or should I find it myself? The walk to the administration level was tense, filled with uncomfortable silence and the occasional whispered comment from passing station residents. Rena kept her head high, though her stomach churned with anxiety. She'd spent years on this station working alongside Venthor, but always in the engineering sections, always as just the mechanic. Now she was supposed to run the entire facility. The administration office was exactly as Venthor had left it, down to the ancient earth cactus he'd kept on his desk, a gift from Rena years ago. As she sat in his chair, Kvala handed over a data crystal with obvious reluctance. The station's current status reports, Kvala said. You'll find everything is running perfectly efficiently under current management protocols. There's really no need for significant changes. A alarm blared through the office, cutting off Kvala's words. Red warning lights pulsed along the walls as a computerized voice announced, warning. Legacy engine stability at 60% and falling. Containment protocols initiated. Rena was already moving, pulling up diagnostic screens and accessing the engine's core systems. How long has the containment field been fluctuating like this? Kvala's form clouded with confusion. The containment field is within normal parameters. Normal parameters if you want the engine to fail in the next month, Rena snapped, her fingers flying over the controls. The resonance patterns are completely misaligned. Who's been handling the maintenance cycles? Our most qualified engineers dash. Your most qualified engineers are going to get everyone killed. Rena grabbed her toolkit from her shoulder bag and headed for the door. The legacy engine isn't like other quantum cores. It needs specific harmonics, precise adjustments that Venthor and I developed. If you've been running it on standard protocols. She let the implication hang in the air as she strode toward the engineering levels, Kvala hurrying to keep up. Station residents pressed against the walls as they passed, their expressions ranging from curiosity to outright hostility. Rena ignored them all, her mind already working through the calculations needed to stabilize the engine. The engineering section was chaos when they arrived. Alien technicians rushed back and forth, calling out readings and suggestions, none of which would help. Rena pushed through them to the main control panel, her heart sinking as she saw the readings. "Everyone out," she ordered, voice carrying over the commotion. When no one moved, she turned to Kvala. "Get them out now, or we're all dead in about 10 minutes. Something in her tone must have convinced the operations director. Kvala's form pulsed with urgent colors as they ordered the engineering team to evacuate. Soon, Rena was alone with the struggling engine, its quantum core pulsing with dangerous energy behind thick containment walls. "All right, old friend," she muttered, pulling tools from her kit. "Let's show them what you can really do." Her hands moved with practiced precision, adjusting harmonics and power flows that only she and Venthor had truly understood. The legacy engine wasn't just another power source, it was a unique fusion of human intuition and alien technology, requiring both technical expertise and an almost artistic touch to maintain properly. As she worked, Rena could almost hear Venthor's voice, "The universe doesn't care what species you are, little one. It only cares if you understand its music." 5 minutes later, the warning lights stopped flashing. The engine's pulse steadied, its quantum core glowing with healthy energy. Rena stepped back, wiping sweat from her forehead with a grease-stained hand. Kvala entered cautiously, their crystalline form shifting through patterns of uncertainty. "The readings, they're better than they've been in months." "Because that's how the engine is supposed to run," Rena said, packing up her tools. "Venthor didn't choose me as his successor on a whim. I know this station, this engine, better than anyone alive. The question is, are you going to let me do my job?" Kvala was silent for a long moment, their surface showing complex patterns that Rena couldn't quite interpret. Finally, they spoke. "The quarterly board meeting is tomorrow. They will have questions." "Good," Rena smiled grimly. "Because I have quite a few of my own." As she headed back to her office, Rena's mind was already racing with plans and possibilities. She had inherited more than just a station, she had inherited Venthor's dream of a place where species could work together, learn from each other. The fact that she'd had to save the station on her first day suggested that dream was in more danger than she'd realized. Morning cycle aboard Helio station brought a different quality of light filtering through the quantum-treated windows, casting rainbow refractions across Rena's desk as she reviewed the maintenance logs from the past 6 months. Each entry made her frown deepen. The legacy engine's degradation hadn't happened overnight, it had been systematic, a slow poisoning disguised as routine maintenance. She pulled up another holographic display, comparing power signatures from different time periods. "Computer, highlight all maintenance procedures performed by Chief Engineer Talix Vorn." The display lit up with dozens of entries, each showing subtle but significant deviations from Venthor's original protocols. Not mistakes, the changes were too precise, too consistent for that. Someone had been deliberately destabilizing the engine, and they knew exactly what they were doing. A soft chime announced a visitor. "Enter," Rena called, not looking up from the displays. Heavy footsteps approached her desk, not the crystalline chiming of an Ardulian. She looked up to find a massive Corvan standing before her, his scaled hide marked with the geometric patterns of a master engineer. Unlike most of his species, who tended toward aggression, this one's posture was almost apologetic. "Administrator Stark," he rumbled, "I am Zwextal. I was I was junior engineer under Venthor, before. Before they promoted Talix Vorn over you, Rena finished, noting how the Corvin's scales rippled at the name. Sit down, Ziwaextal. Tell me what you know. The Corvin settled carefully into a reinforced chair. Things changed after Venthor fell ill. Talix Vorn brought in new procedures, said they were modernizing our systems. When I questioned the changes, he flexed his clawed hands. They transferred me to waste management. Rena leaned forward. Because you knew enough about the legacy engine to spot what they were really doing. Ziwaextal's eyes widened slightly. You found something. Before Rena could answer, her office door slid open again. Kvala strode in, their crystalline form pulsing with urgent colors. The board is assembling early. They're demanding your presence immediately. Rena glanced at her displays, then at Ziwaextal. Come with me, she told the Corvin. I think we're both going to be needed. The boardroom occupied Helios Station's highest level, its transparent walls offering a panoramic view of space. 7 Ardulian directors sat around a curved table, their forms refracting light in patterns that spoke of agitation and displeasure. At the center sat Director First Meridian, their ancient crystalline form traced with patterns that had taken centuries to develop. Administrator Stark, Meridian's voice resonated with authority. You've made quite an impression in your first day. Overriding established protocols, dismissing qualified engineers from their posts. Saving the station from an imminent core breach, Rena interrupted, activating the room's holographic display. The maintenance logs appeared in the air, highlighted sections spinning slowly. Would you like to explain why Chief Engineer Talix Vorn has been systematically sabotaging the legacy engine? The room erupted in chiming protests and flickering color patterns. Meridian raised a faceted hand for silence. These are serious accusations, Administrator. Chief Engineer Talix Vorn has served this station for decades. And in 6 months has nearly undone 10 years of work, Rena countered. She gestured to Ziwaextal. Your own junior engineer noticed the degradation, tried to raise concerns. Instead of investigating, you buried him in waste management. Why? One of the directors leaned forward, their form pulsing with deep blue tones. The legacy engine is outdated technology. Perhaps these degradations you've noticed are simply signs that it's time to upgrade to modern quantum core designs. Modern designs that your corporation happens to manufacture. Rena asked quietly. The director's surface clouded with patterns of surprise and anger. Meridian's voice cut through the tension. You overstep, Administrator. The board's connections and business dealings are not your concern. Your job is to maintain this station's operations, nothing more. My job, Rena said, her voice hard, is to protect Venthor's legacy. This station isn't just another corporate asset, it's a template for cooperation between species, a proof that we're stronger together than apart. The legacy engine isn't outdated, it's unique. It's the only one of its kind because it requires both human intuition and Ardulian precision to operate properly. That's why Venthor designed it that way. She turned to face each board member in turn. Someone is trying to force this station to fail, to prove that cooperation between species doesn't work. They're willing to risk everyone's lives to do it. The question is, are you going to help me stop them, or are you part of the problem? The silence that followed was broken by an urgent alert from Rena's wrist computer. She checked the display and felt her blood run cold. The containment field is degrading again. But this time. She looked up at the board. This time it's not subtle. Someone's trying to force a breach. Meridian rose, their form pulsing with alarm. How long? Minutes. Rena was already moving toward the door, Ziwaextal close behind. Evacuate the upper levels. Get everyone you can to the emergency shelters. If that core goes critical. She didn't finish the sentence. They all knew what a quantum core breach would do to the station and everyone on it. As she ran toward the engineering section, Rena's mind raced through possibilities. The sabotage pattern had changed, from subtle degradation to outright attack. Why? What had spooked them into acting so boldly? The answer hit her just as they reached the engineering level, her investigation into the maintenance logs. Someone was destroying evidence, and they didn't care how many people they took with it. The engineering section was already in chaos, but this time Rena didn't order an evacuation. She needed help, and Zweigstal's massive form pushing people aside proved useful as they made their way to the main control panel. The containment field is being overloaded from multiple points, she said, scanning the readings. They've locked out the main controls, we can't shut it down from here. Zweigstal leaned over her shoulder, his scales darkening with concern. The auxiliary controls? Also locked. Rena's fingers flew over the panel, trying to find a way through the security lockouts. They've thought of everything, almost everything. A smile crossed her face. They forgot about the maintenance backdoor Venthor built in. The one only his successor would know about. She pulled a tool from her kit, a simple mechanical device that looked out of place among the advanced technology surrounding them. Sometimes, she muttered, fitting it into a nearly invisible port, the old ways are the best ways. The legacy engine's core pulsed behind them, its quantum field fluctuating dangerously as they worked to save not just the station, but everything it stood for. And somewhere above them, someone was watching, waiting to see if their plan would succeed or if a human mechanic and a Corvan engineer could prove that Venthor's dream was worth fighting for. The hidden protocol. The maintenance tunnel echoed with the hum of failing systems as Rena crawled through its narrow confines, sweat dripping from her forehead. Behind her, Zweigstal's massive form barely fit in the space, his scales scraping against the metal walls as they made their way toward the legacy engine's core chamber. The old maintenance access should be just ahead, Rena called back, her voice barely audible over the growing whine of stressed quantum fields. Venthor built these tunnels when he first designed the station. Said sometimes you need to get your hands dirty to really understand a system. A violent tremor shook the tunnel, making them both freeze. Through the walls came the distinct sound of crystalline chimes, Ardulian voices raised in panic as the evacuation continued above them. Rena checked her wrist display, grimacing at the readings. The containment field was failing faster than she'd calculated. Administrator, Zweigstal rumbled from behind her, there's something you should know about Talix Vorn. Before Venthor fell ill, I discovered unauthorized transmissions from the engineering section. Communications with a corporate entity called Quantum Ascendancy. Rena paused her crawl, turning as much as the tight space would allow. The same corporation that wants to replace the legacy engine with their own technology? Yes, but it's more than that. They don't just want to replace the engine, they want to discredit the entire concept of hybrid technology. The legacy engine proves that combining human and alien engineering creates something greater than either could achieve alone. Some find that truth uncomfortable. Another tremor, stronger this time, punctuated his words. Rena resumed crawling, her mind racing. Because if hybrid technology works, then their entire philosophy of species superiority falls apart. Can't have that, can we? They reached a junction where the tunnel widened slightly. Rena pulled herself up to a small access panel, its surface covered in years of accumulated grime. As she wiped it clean, her fingers found familiar grooves, maintenance codes carved directly into the metal, hidden from electronic scanning. Venthor knew something like this might happen, she muttered, tracing the patterns. He built in safeguards that only someone with real mechanical knowledge would understand. Not just codes and protocols, but physical fail-safes that require actual hands-on work. The panel clicked open, revealing a complex array of manual controls and diagnostic readouts. But what caught Rena's attention was a small data crystal, tucked into a hidden compartment. She pulled it out, holding it up to the dim emergency lighting. That's impossible, Zweigstal breathed. That's a legacy crystal, they haven't been manufactured in decades. The processing architecture isn't even compatible with modern systems. Rena smiled grimly. Unless you have an old-style reader. Like the one Venthor insisted I keep in my toolkit. She pulled out a worn device, slotting the crystal into place. A holographic message flickered to life, Venthor's familiar form, his crystalline features showing signs of the illness that would eventually claim him. Rena, the recording began, if you're seeing this, then my fears were justified. The legacy engine isn't just a power source, it's proof that the future belongs to those willing to work together, to combine the best of all worlds. But there are those who fear such cooperation, who would rather see us divided. The engine's true designs are hidden within this crystal, including protocols I never shared with anyone but you. Use them wisely, little one. The message ended just as another violent tremor rocked the tunnel. Warning lights flashed along the walls as the station's computer announced, critical containment failure imminent. All personnel evacuate immediately. Rena quickly connected the crystal reader to the maintenance panel, her fingers flying over the controls as she accessed Venthor's hidden protocols. The information that scrolled across her display made her catch her breath. The legacy engine, she whispered. It's not just a hybrid of human and Ardulian technology. It's designed to adapt, to learn from every species that interacts with it. That's why standard maintenance procedures were failing, the engine has evolved beyond them. Zyxtal leaned forward, his scaled features showing intense concentration. Then the sabotage wasn't just about causing a failure. They needed to prevent the engine from adapting further, from proving even more conclusively that cooperation between species is the key to advancement. A sudden explosion somewhere above them sent shockwaves through the tunnel. Rena's wrist display flashed urgent warnings, someone had detected their presence and was trying to seal off the maintenance section. They're going to trap us down here, Zyxtal growled, his scales darkening with anger. Let the containment failure kill us along with the evidence. Rena was already moving, connecting her toolkit's power source directly to the maintenance panel. Not if I can help it. Venthor's protocols aren't just instructions, they're a key to communicating directly with the engine's adaptive systems. If I can establish a connection. Her words were cut off by a screech of tearing metal. The tunnel entrance behind them began to collapse as emergency bulkheads slammed into place. They were sealed in, with only minutes before the containment field failed completely. Rena's hands moved with desperate speed, implementing Venthor's protocols while fighting against whoever was trying to override the system from above. The legacy engine's core pulsed with increasingly erratic energy, its quantum fields fluctuating wildly as competing commands tore through its systems. Come on, she muttered, sweat stinging her eyes as she worked. Show them what you can really do. Show them why Venthor believed in you, in all of us. The engine's response would determine not just their fate, but the future of cooperation between species across the galaxy. And somewhere above them, watching through the station's sensors, their saboteurs were about to learn exactly what happened when you underestimated both human ingenuity and alien wisdom combined. Trial by fire. The legacy engine's core chamber blazed with quantum energy, its containment field flickering like a dying star. Rena's hands flew across the maintenance controls, implementing Venthor's hidden protocols while monitoring the engine's increasingly unstable readings. Beside her, Zyxtal braced himself against the tunnel wall as another tremor shook the station. The adaptive systems are responding, Rena called out over the rising whine of stressed quantum fields. But someone's fighting us from the main control room. They're trying to force a cascade failure before we can stabilize the core. A new alarm blared through the maintenance tunnel, atmospheric pressure was dropping. Their saboteurs weren't just trying to trigger a core breach, they were attempting to suffocate them first. Zyxtal's scales darkened to a deep crimson as he checked his own readings. We have perhaps 10 minutes of air left, he rumbled. Less if the pressure continues to drop at this rate. Rena nodded grimly, her fingers never stopping their dance across the controls. The legacy engine's response to Venthor's protocols was unlike anything she'd seen before. The quantum field wasn't just stabilizing, it was evolving, adapting to their inputs in real time. Lines of code scrolled across her display in patterns that seemed almost organic. "Look at this," she breathed, pointing to a particular sequence. "The engine isn't just accepting commands, it's learning from them. Every interaction, every adjustment we make, it incorporates into its base programming. That's why Talix Vorn's sabotage took so long to have an effect. The engine was actively trying to correct for the damage until they overwhelmed its adaptive capabilities." A violent shudder ran through the station, strong enough to make even Zwextal's massive form stumble. Above them, the sound of tearing metal suggested structural integrity was beginning to fail. Rena's wrist display flashed with urgent messages. Emergency bulkheads were sealing throughout the station, trapping evacuating crew members in sections that would soon be exposed to vacuum. "They're willing to kill everyone," Zwextal growled. "Not just us, but hundreds of innocent crew members." Rena's response was cut off by a sudden burst of static from her communicator. Through the interference, Kvala's voice came through, tight with tension. "Administrator. Talix Vorn and 3 others have barricaded themselves in the main control room. They've locked out all command functions and initiated a station-wide purge protocol." "Of course they have," Rena muttered. "Can't leave any witnesses to corporate sabotage." She keyed her communicator. "Kvala, I need you to listen carefully. The legacy engine isn't just a power source, it's a learning system. Every species that interacts with it adds to its capabilities. I need you to gather everyone you can find, every engineer, every technician, regardless of species. Get them to any working terminal they can find." "What are you planning?" Kvala's voice was skeptical but urgent. "Something either brilliant or suicidal," Rena admitted. "Probably both. Venthor didn't just build an engine, he built a network designed to learn from diversity. The more different perspectives interact with it, the stronger it becomes. That's why they wanted it destroyed. Not because it was failing, but because it was succeeding too well." She turned to Zwextal, her eyes bright with determination. "I need you to do something that's going to seem crazy. I need you to connect directly with the engine's quantum field." The Corvin's scales rippled with shock. That amount of energy would overwhelm any organic nervous system. Under normal circumstances, yes. But your species has natural electromagnetic shielding in your scales. Combined with human cognitive patterns and Ardulian crystal resonance. She gestured to her communicator, where Kvala was still listening. "If we all connect simultaneously, from different points around the station." Understanding dawned in Zwextal's reptilian eyes. "We become a distributed processing network. The engine adapts to all of us at once. Creating a quantum field stable enough to contain its own breach," Rena finished. "But we'll only have one shot, and if we're wrong, we're dead anyway," Zwextal rumbled. He placed one massive hand on the maintenance panel. "I trust you, Administrator." As Venthor did. Rena keyed her communicator again, broadcasting station-wide. "This is Administrator Stark. I know you're scared. I know many of you don't trust a human to run this station. But right now, I need you to trust in what Helio stands for, the idea that we are stronger together than apart. Whatever species you are, whatever department you work in, find a terminal and prepare to interface with the legacy engine on my mark." She took a deep breath, looking at her display where dozens of signals were already appearing as crew members responded to her call. In the main control room, Talix Vorn and his conspirators would be watching, perhaps already realizing what she planned. They might try to accelerate the breach, or vent the entire station to space. It was a race now, between cooperation and chaos, between trust and fear. "On my mark," Rena said, her voice steady as she initiated Venthor's final protocol. The legacy engine's core pulsed with blinding energy, its quantum field reaching out through the station's systems like a living thing awakening. 3, 2, 1, now. The universe seemed to hold its breath as hundreds of minds, dozens of species, connected simultaneously with the most advanced hybrid technology ever created. And in that moment, as human determination met alien wisdom, the true legacy of Heliostation would finally be revealed. The quantum surge swept through Heliostation like a wave of liquid light, connecting hundreds of minds through the legacy engine's adaptive network. In the maintenance tunnel, Rena's consciousness expanded beyond the confines of her physical form, touching the thoughts and perceptions of countless others. She felt the crystalline resonance of Ardulian minds, the electromagnetic patterns of Corvan consciousness, and dozens of other species' unique ways of perceiving reality. Through this extraordinary connection, she finally understood what Venthor had truly built. The legacy engine wasn't just a power source that happened to use hybrid technology, it was a living proof that diversity itself was a source of power. Each different perspective, each unique way of processing information, strengthened the quantum field that now enveloped the station. In the main control room, Talix Vorn and his conspirators fought desperately against the rising tide of unified consciousness. Rena could sense their attempts to disrupt the field, to trigger the cascade failure they had planned so carefully. But their efforts were dwarfed by the combined will of the station's crew, hundreds of minds working in perfect harmony. The legacy engine's core blazed with newfound strength, its quantum field stabilizing not through brute force or technical precision alone, but through the synthesis of countless different approaches to problem solving. Human intuition merged with Ardulian precision, Corvan resilience complemented the subtle perceptions of a dozen other species, each contribution making the whole stronger. "It's beautiful," Zwextal's thoughts resonated through the network, his usual rumbling voice transformed into pure concept and emotion. "All this time, we thought we were maintaining an engine, but we were really building a bridge between minds." Through their shared consciousness, Rena directed the combined power of the network toward containing the breach. The failing containment field reformed, stronger than ever, shaped by the understanding of every engineer and technician connected to the system. The quantum core's erratic pulses smoothed into a steady rhythm, like the beating of a vast, shared heart. In the control room, the saboteurs' resistance crumbled. Rena sensed their shock and fear as they realized the true magnitude of what they had tried to destroy. Through the station's security systems, she watched as Kvala led a team to apprehend them, their corporate conspiracy exposed not just to the station's leadership, but to every connected mind. As the immediate crisis passed, Rena began the delicate process of disconnecting the network. One by one, minds returned to their individual forms, each carrying with them a profound understanding of what they had experienced. The legacy engine's quantum field gentled, settling into a new configuration that hummed with potential. When Rena finally opened her eyes, she found the maintenance tunnel illuminated by the steady glow of restored power. Her hands were shaking as she pulled them away from the control panel, her mind still adjusting to the boundaries of individual consciousness. Beside her, Zwextal straightened to his full height, his scales shimmering with residual energy. "The station is secure," Kvala's voice came through the newly restored communication system. "Talix Vorn and his associates are in custody. They've already begun confessing to their corporate sponsors' involvement. But Administrator, what did you do? Every system is operating at efficiency levels we've never seen before." Rena smiled, running her hand along the maintenance panel that had helped save not just the station, but the very idea it represented. "We didn't do anything. We just finally understood what Venthor knew all along, that true progress comes not from any one species or technology, but from learning to work together in ways no one ever imagined possible." Hours later, standing in her office with the station's senior staff, Rena watched as repair crews from a dozen different species worked together to strengthen the legacy engine's new configuration. The board members who had survived the crisis had been replaced by representatives from every major species on the station, their forms casting rainbow patterns across the observation windows. "The quantum ascendancy's stock is in freefall," Kvala reported, their crystalline form pulsing with satisfaction. "Their attempt to discredit hybrid technology has backfired spectacularly. Every major research institution in 3 sectors is requesting access to study the legacy engine's new capabilities. They can study it, Rena said firmly, but not just as a piece of technology. They need to understand that the engine's true power comes from the principles it represents. Cooperation. Understanding. The willingness to see beyond our differences to the strength we can find together. She turned to face her assembled staff, seeing not the prejudice and doubt that had greeted her arrival, but respect and shared purpose. Venthor didn't just leave me a station to run. He left all of us a legacy to build upon. And now that we understand what's possible when we work together, that legacy is just beginning. As if in response to her words, the legacy engine's quantum core pulsed with warm light, its energy flowing through the station like a promise of things to come. In the depths of space, Helios Station shone like a beacon, not just of technological achievement, but of a future where the combined potential of all species could reach heights none of them could achieve alone. Rena Stark, the human mechanic who had inherited a station and helped transform it into something more, smiled as she looked out at the star-filled expanse. Somewhere out there, she liked to think Venthor was smiling too, knowing that his greatest creation, not the engine, but the idea it represented, would continue to evolve and grow, powered by the endless possibilities of minds working together across the boundaries of species and space.